Living with alopecia in a judgmental small town was already a struggle, but a trip to the grocery store turned into a nightmare when Karen rips out my wig, says I'm faking my disease for attention. Here's how it all went down. I never imagined that a simple trip to the grocery store would turn into one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. Living with alopecia wasn't easy, especially in a small town where everyone knew each other's business, but I had learned to cope, to find strength in my vulnerability. My wig was more than just a cosmetic accessory. It was a shield, a piece of armor that helped me face the world with confidence. That day, the grocery store was busier than usual. I navigated through the aisles, my shopping list in hand, trying to ignore the curious glances that occasionally came my way. I had grown accustomed to them, the subtle, sometimes not so subtle stares that seemed to question my appearance. As I reached for a box of cereal, I heard a voice that sent a shiver down my spine. "You are shaving hair for attention," it accused loudly. I turned around, my heart sinking as I saw Karen, a local who was notorious for her lack of tact and empathy. "I have alopecia, Karen," I replied, my voice steady despite the rising anxiety. "It's a medical condition, not a choice." Karen scoffed, her eyes scanning me with blatant skepticism. "Oh please, I've seen you with and without your wigs. You're just doing this for sympathy. It's pathetic." I felt a flush of anger and embarrassment. "It's not like that," I said, trying to keep my composure. "Alopecia causes hair loss. I can't control it." Before I could react, Karen reached out and yanked at my wig, pulling it off my head. The world seemed to freeze for a moment as I stood there, exposed and vulnerable, the eyes of the entire store on me. The shock and humiliation were overwhelming. Tears welled up in my eyes as I scrambled to cover my head, my hands shaking. "Why would you do that?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. Karen stood there, holding my wig like a trophy, a smug look on her face. "Just proving a point," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. The silence in the store was deafening. I could feel the stares, the whispers, the judgment. It was my worst nightmare come to life. I snatched my wig back from Karen's grasp and hurried to the checkout, my only thought to escape the prying eyes. As I left the store, the weight of what had just happened began to sink in. Karen's actions, driven by ignorance and cruelty, had stripped me of my dignity in the most public way possible. I felt exposed, not just physically, but emotionally. My condition, something I had struggled to accept and manage, had been turned into a spectacle for others' entertainment. The incident spread through the town like wildfire. People talked, some with sympathy, others with thinly veiled gossip. Karen, on the other hand, seemed unfazed by the backlash. She continued to parade around the town, her head held high as if she had done nothing wrong. But something had shifted in me. Karen's actions, as hurtful as they were, had sparked a fire within me. I was tired of hiding, of feeling ashamed of something I had no control over. I started to speak openly about alopecia, to educate those around me about the condition. I shared my story, not for sympathy, but for awareness and understanding. I began to wear my wigs with pride, not as a shield but as a statement. I was more than my hair, more than the judgment and ignorance of people like Karen. I found a community of people who shared my condition, who understood the challenges and the triumphs. Together, we supported each other, celebrating our uniqueness and resilience. As for Karen, she remained a bitter reminder of the cruelty and ignorance that still existed in the world. But she also served as a catalyst for my transformation. Her actions, though repulsive and provoking, had inadvertently given me a voice, a purpose. I learned to embrace my alopecia, to see it not as a flaw, but as a part of who I am. I found strength in vulnerability, beauty in difference, and though the journey was far from easy, it was mine to own, to shape into a story of triumph over adversity. Karen may have ripped off my wig that day, but she couldn't take away my spirit, my determination to rise above her narrow-mindedness. In the end, I was grateful for the lesson she unknowingly taught me, that true beauty and strength come from within, and no act of ignorance can ever take that away. In the days following the incident, I became more vocal about my condition. I started a blog to share my experiences and connect with others facing similar challenges. The support and love I received were overwhelming. People from all over the world reached out, sharing their stories and expressing their solidarity. It was a powerful reminder that I was not alone, that our struggles, no matter how personal, could unite us in unexpected ways. Karen's cruel act had sparked a movement, a wave of awareness and acceptance that spread far beyond the confines of our small town. And through it all, I stood tall, my head held high, not in defiance of Karen, but in celebration of myself and everyone who had ever felt marginalized or misunderstood. This story really touched my heart. It's heartbreaking to see how cruel people can be, but it's also inspiring to witness the strength and resilience of someone like you. Keep shining and spreading awareness, sending love and support from my corner of the internet. I never expected my little sister to turn against me, but when she started calling me names like freeloader and parasitic leech, I knew I had to take action. So I came up with a plan to teach her a lesson she would never forget. Little did I know it would lead to a series of unexpected events. Here's how it all went down. I am 28 years old and currently living in a small town facing a lack of job opportunities and a rising cost of living crisis. Due to these circumstances, I have moved back in with my parents as we have a good relationship. I contribute by buying groceries and paying some of the bills. However, my younger sister, 16, is not happy with this arrangement. She insists that I should be independent and move out again. Recently, she started continuously calling me a freeloader and a parasitic leech. My parents have chosen to live a simplistic life and are not fans of technology. Although they use a few modern devices like a laundry machine, a car, a flip phone, and a TV, they generally avoid technology. However, they do not take away our personal gadgets if we have purchased them ourselves. When I turned 18 and started looking for my first job, I had to handwrite my resume because I didn't have access to a computer or printer. Unfortunately, it is challenging to find employment while still in high school due to the limited job market in our town. In contrast, my younger sister has been fortunate. I bought her a PC, a smartphone, and a data plan when she was young. Despite this, she continued to call me names persistently. Eventually, her constant name-calling started to affect me, and I came up with an idea. I decided to temporarily repossess the computer and smartphone from my sister. Now she is experiencing a similar childhood to mine. As a result, she has stopped with the name-calling. I hope she learns to appreciate a simpler lifestyle. It's worth mentioning that the smartphone is under an installment plan, and the PC was originally shared between my sister and me when it was kept in the living room before I moved out. I did not steal anything. It had been a while since I took back my smartphone from my little sister, whom I had been lending it to. She had been calling me a parasitic leech because I had to move back home due to the rising cost of living. Our parents are quite anti-technology, so she has had no internet access since then. I believe that justice should be fair, impartial, and reasonable, with reasonableness being the key aspect. With that in mind, I decided to return the smartphone to my little sister. She had stopped the constant name-calling, was being a bit friendly, and had been sleeping all day since I took the phone. However, I had already sold the computer. Life is short, and I don't want to hold grudges with anyone, especially not my own sister. So I calmly knocked on her door, holding a smartphone and a data plan in my hand. "Hi, little sister," I greeted her through the closed door. She yelled, "What the hell?" In response, I said, "Well, I was going to give you back the smartphone, but it seems like you want to be left alone. So I'll leave you be. Enjoy the day, lil sis." She then came out like a yelping dog, begging for the phone back. I told her that my friend really needed a smartphone, so I was thinking of gifting it to him. She sighed and went back into her room. She is sleeping now. I think this time I'll let her buy her own phone, hoping that she will mature in the coming years. She was a sweet child a couple of years ago, and I hope she will become a kind person again in the future. After my recent disagreement with my younger sister, where a smartphone became a tool in our household power struggle, I noticed a change in her behavior. She became noticeably more respectful, which could have been a sign of an epiphany. However, I couldn't resist one final gesture. For Christmas, I purchased a new woolen beanie for my sister, but I also found an old smartphone with a shattered screen and a weak battery from my drawer. I wrapped both items together and placed them under the Christmas tree. Her initial excitement quickly faded when she saw the condition of the phone. Later that day, she approached me calmly, rather than with anger. She expressed gratitude for the smartphone despite its flaws, and stated that she loved the beanie. Considering all of this, I decided to order a new battery for the smartphone. Gotta love old smartphones with replaceable batteries. Unfortunately for her, she will have to deal with the cracked screen until she saves enough money for a new phone. Fortunately, she recently secured a job at her friend's pizza restaurant. Disclaimer: I understand that my initial actions could be seen as theft if the phone had not been paid off. I apologize for any offense caused to the Amish community. I do not recommend replicating these actions with your loved ones, as it may result in estrangement. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Reflecting on this story, it is clear that the strained relationship between siblings can sometimes lead to unexpected actions and consequences. While the OP's decision to temporarily repossess the smartphone and teach their sister a lesson may have been controversial, it ultimately sparked a change in her behavior. This narrative serves as a reminder that communication, understanding, and empathy are vital in resolving conflicts within families. It is a hopeful reminder that even in challenging situations, there is always an opportunity for growth, forgiveness, and a chance to rebuild bonds. My parents' separation was just the beginning of a turbulent journey, marred by abuse and distance. Little did I know that reconnecting with my estranged stepfather would plunge me into a web of chaos and confrontation. Here's how it all went down. My parents separated when I was 3 years old and my sister was 8. After the separation, my biological father, referred to as SD, wasn't really involved in our lives as he moved to the capital city. This divorce was expected from my mom's side of the family, as SD was abusive towards my mom and sister. SD made a few surprise visits during that time, but apart from that, we didn't have much contact with him. My mom did an unbelievably great job raising my sister and me as a single mom, even though we constantly fought. Fast forward to when I was 19 and found a job in the capital city. I moved out within a week, which was hard for my mom and surprising for my sister. She always thought I would live with mom until my 30s. But honestly, I needed a change in my life as I felt stuck in one place with no direction. I moved into a flat with my friend and lived there for almost a year. After some time, I started looking for a place closer to my work, as the commute of almost 2 hours was really tiring. I told my flatmate about my search, and within a few weeks, one of our friends moved in with us. Our flat had 2 bedrooms, 2 toilets, and a huge living room with a kitchen. Since I wasn't on the lease, finding a flat was quite challenging as a single male. So, I called SD and asked if he knew anyone who was renting. He proposed that I move into the flat he was living in and stay there for as long as I wanted. I agreed and moved in, only to find out that it wasn't his flat, but his colleagues. Luckily, the guy was super chill. I paid rent, utilities, and food expenses. After a few months, South Dakota approached me and said I had to move out because he couldn't bring escorts prostitutes into the flat while I was there. During my stay, he would have his son, my half-brother, over every second weekend because his baby mama had kicked him out of their flat. Fortunately, one of my colleagues had a flatmate looking for a roommate, so I moved out a few weeks later, telling SD, "If women are more important to you than your own son, this is the last time we speak." I went low contact, LC, with SD, and after a few months, he started blowing up my phone. I ended up blocking him, just like my sister had done a few years before me. Surprisingly, his side of the family started calling and messaging me, insisting that I speak to him, except for my uncle, SD's brother, and his wife. My uncle and his wife have 2 boys, and for some reason, those sneaky little beggars love me. I replied to SD's sister, telling her that he had no idea what had happened, and I strongly suggested that she leave it be. However, she ignored my advice, and even used her mom to pressure me, so I cut them off as well. For some time, everything was quiet, but as 2020 came to an end, my sister called me and said that SD had shown up unannounced at her workplace. She lives and works 150 kilometers away from the capital city, and demanded an apology for cutting him out of her life. As you can imagine, my sister gave him a piece of her mind and sent him packing. She then called me to tell me what had happened. I was flabbergasted, to say the least. At that time, I was working in the corporate office of a well-known internet-based enterprise. I had a gut feeling that SD would try to show up at my work as well, since he worked in public transportation, and could have possibly seen me getting on or off at a stop near my workplace. And yup, it happened. One lovely day, I received a call from the reception, asking if I could go down to see someone who had come to visit me. I asked who it was, and they said it was SD. I simply laughed and told them that I didn't want anything to do with him, and that he was bothering them, so they should call the police. At that moment, I had a view of the entrance, and could see how pissed and angry he was, and I just laughed. SD waited for 2 hours for me to get off work, but little did he know I had another 5 hours left. So, that wasn't happening. During that time, as I mentioned earlier, I had maintained contact with my uncle. I would spend some quality time with him, his wife, and their boys during a few days over the years. After a few years, I landed a new position in the company and was about to relocate when I ran into SD's ex. We were always on good terms, so we started chatting. She told me that SD was dating a woman 15 years older than him, and they were planning to buy a house and all that. I just laughed because I knew I would be quite a distance from them. After moving and spending 1-2 a year in the new city, the same city my sister lived in, I had to go on a business trip abroad for 3 weeks. During those 3 weeks, I wrote to my cousin and asked if he knew whether SD would be at his mom's place. I decided that the only victim suffering from this situation was my grandma, who didn't deserve it. My cousin told me that SD was working the whole week, including weekends. So on my way back, I decided to make a surprise visit to my grandma and his sister, who lived with her. I showed up unannounced as my cousin didn't spill the beans about my plans. Grandma was super happy to see me after well over 8 years, and I had a talk with my aunt. I told her that I was willing to talk with her, but she needed to stop interfering in matters that didn't concern her and keep her distance from SD. She agreed, and we talked, including Grandma, for almost 8 hours before I had to leave. Fast forward to the beginning of 2023, when my uncle celebrated his 50th birthday. I decided to surprise him by showing up at the party with a bottle of his favorite rum. I called his wife and asked if SD would be there, and she told me that they were out of the country. She promised to keep my visit a secret so as not to spoil the surprise for my uncle. I also checked with other family members from SD's side to make sure, and it turned out to be true. I followed through with my plan and showed up at the birthday party. You could see how happy my uncle was to see me. As the party went on, my uncle and I started drinking and smoking cigars quite early. The alcohol loosened his tongue and he told me that SD had tried multiple times to convince him to call me for a visit with the intention of confronting me. But my uncle outright told him to shove that idea up his butt because he didn't want to destroy our relationship for the sake of SD and his son. During the party, the daughter of SD's soon-to-be wife showed up. I didn't know her, and she didn't know who I was. We're not related at all, as she is older than me. As the party was coming to an end, I took a bottle of rum and went to the garden. To my surprise, she joined me, and after half an hour, we ended up hooking up. In the summer, I took 3 weeks of vacation and decided that it was finally time to change my last name to my mom's maiden name, leaving behind any connection to SD. Well, my auntie, my uncle's wife, wasn't happy about it and questioned what our grandpa would think. But I reminded her that he had long passed away, and his opinion would be irrelevant either way. SD didn't try to contact me or my side of the family, for which I am grateful. I finally feel like I can live without constantly looking over my shoulder. Cutting ties with my estranged stepfather and reconnecting with supportive family members have been crucial steps in reclaiming my happiness. Although the road was challenging, I have learned to prioritize my own well-being and surround myself with positive influences. Now, I can confidently move forward, leaving behind the shadows of the past and embracing a brighter future. Your story is a powerful testament to resilience and the importance of setting boundaries for your own well-being. In this gripping tale, a mother finds herself locked in a battle against her father and his new partner over the introduction of technology to her children's lives. As tensions rise and secrets are revealed, she must make a difficult decision that could change their family dynamics forever. Here's how it all went down. I, 30F, have 2 kids, Arthur, 4M, and Lucy, 7 months. When my son was a baby, my husband, 32M, and I decided not to give our children any gadgets, phones, tablets, or computers until they were at least 9 years old. In my early 20s, I worked as a babysitter and noticed that many of the kids I cared for were always glued to iPads. They lacked social skills, refused to go out, and were difficult to be around without their gadgets. While I understand that parenting can be overwhelming, I refuse to raise my children in that manner. My dad, 63M, is dating Shelly, 37F. Shelly's sister gave her older kids an iPad to keep them occupied while she focused on her newborn. Both my father and Shelly thought this was a great idea. Since Lucy was born, my father has been trying to convince me to get Arthur an iPad. He believes it would help keep him busy while I take care of the baby and make parenting easier for my husband and me. However, we are not struggling. Although things aren't perfect, we are happy and healthy without iPads. Despite my attempts to express this to my dad, he ignores me. I have been declining his advice all year. He finally stopped bringing it up about a month ago, and I thought the issue was resolved. Last week, when my father and Shelly returned from a trip abroad, I went to their place to pick up some things I had asked them to bring back. That's when I noticed an iPad box in one of their suitcases. Shelly confirmed that they had bought it as a Christmas gift for Arthur. When my father tried to deny it, it became clear that they planned to give it to him without my knowledge. As calmly as I could, I told them I didn't care who they gave the iPad to, but it wouldn't be Arthur. This led to a huge fight, and I informed them that my family wouldn't be attending Christmas at my aunt's house unless they promised not to give Arthur the iPad. Both my father and Shelly are furious. They're calling me ungrateful and insisting that they're only trying to help me and my husband, claiming we would see that if we weren't so stubborn. My father is also upset that I'm denying Arthur an expensive gift that many people don't have access to. My husband and I are standing firm, but I can't help but feel like I might be overreacting. Additionally, I don't want to spend Lucy's first Christmas without the rest of my family. When I consider that, this issue feels like an awful hill to die on. Am I a jerk? Some people in the comments suggested accepting the iPad but keeping it hidden until Arthur was old enough to use it. Initially, I didn't want to do that, but after discussing with my husband, we decided to give it a try. I informed my father that we would be going to my aunt's place for Christmas and agreed to accept the iPad on the condition that he didn't let Arthur see it. Our plan was to tell Arthur that his grandpa had gotten him a gift for when he was older. Since Arthur had expressed his desire for a Hot Wheels track for Christmas some time ago, my husband and I had already purchased it for him. So, we suggested that my dad could give it to him instead. I expected my father to agree, but instead, he accused my husband and me of not trusting him and Shelly, and of denying Arthur something he had spent a lot of money on. He also rejected our idea of the racetrack, asserting his right to decide what he would give his own grandson. I ended the call and contacted my aunt to inform her that we would not be coming for Christmas. She inquired about the situation, and I ended up explaining it to her. As it turned out, my presence and that of my children were more important to her and my cousins than my father's. My aunt threatened to ban him and Shelley from her place if they gave Arthur the iPad. After a heated argument and Shelley's emotional outburst, not an exaggeration, which all took place over the phone, my father apologized and asked what else he could get for my son for Christmas. I suggested toys, books, and art kits that Arthur would like. However, he disregarded my suggestions and gave Arthur a pair of socks. Whatever, Arthur still liked it. Later on, my father and Shelley gave the iPad to her sister's kids, who now have two. I know this because Shelley intentionally mentioned it to Arthur in front of me, emphasizing that her nephews received the best gift ever, and expressing her regret that Arthur couldn't have the same thing. Arthur simply continued playing with his new Lego set, either not paying attention or not caring. Nevertheless, I made sure to keep Shelley away from him for the rest of the evening. My dad noticed this, and I believe he finally realized that the iPad wouldn't matter to my son. He called me yesterday and offered a more sincere apology. That being said, I agree with you all regarding my father. This incident has made it clear that he doesn't truly respect me as a parent or care about my boundaries for my children. In the future, I will closely monitor the time he spends with Arthur and Lucy. The mother's decision to restrict her children's access to technology was made with their best interests in mind, based on her observations and values. While the conflict over the iPad may have caused tension and even disrupted holiday plans, it also highlighted the importance of open communication, respect for parenting choices, and finding common ground. Ultimately, the mother's commitment to her principles and the support she received from her aunt reinforced the significance of setting boundaries and prioritizing her children's well-being. My world turned upside down when my girlfriend, upset about delaying our move-in plans, shattered more than just my anime figures. She shattered a piece of my heart. These figures weren't just collectibles. They were my lifeline during tough times, a source of joy in a world that often felt too heavy. Here's how it all went down. I understand that they might seem strange, but when I was living with my parents, I went through a really difficult time. Collecting those things helped me get through everything. Receiving a new package in the mail and seeing it always made me happy. Even now, years later, I still have all of them, even though I live on my own. My girlfriend and I had an argument about moving in together at my place. Due to the virus situation calming down, we discussed it. However, we've only been dating since January and she has been living with her parents. I wasn't sure if it was the best idea in my opinion, so I suggested waiting a bit. She got really upset with me, so I went outside to calm down. After a while, she came out and said she's leaving to go back home. We said our goodbyes, and when I went back to my room, I found two of my figures broken. I understand that they may seem foolish or whatever, but they were mine. They meant something to me and brought me happiness during difficult times. She went and broke them. The one on the left is missing its entire body, which is supposed to come apart, but her body is missing. I've searched for it, but can't find it anywhere. I think she either took it with her or threw it away. The other three parts are from the same figure but are just broken. It's beyond repair at this point, and I can't find the missing pieces. The figure only cost around $30, but it hurts because they had sentimental value to me. Now they're broken and gone, and I feel heartbroken and awful. I haven't texted or talked to her yet, so I'm not sure what to do. I want to ask for the missing body of one figure back, but I don't know how to approach the situation. Should I just tell her to give it back? The other figure is broken, but I can try to put it back together. Can anyone help? After reading the comments on my previous post, I knew I couldn't stay with her. I still wanted my belongings back, so I called her mom and explained the situation. Her mom said she would talk to my ex-girlfriend. On the phone, I made it clear to her mom that this was something I couldn't accept and I would probably break up with her. At this point, I just wanted my stuff back. Later, her mom told me to drive to their home and wait outside. I did as instructed, and my ex-girlfriend came out with tears in her eyes. Her mom had told her that I was going to break up with her because of this. She handed me the missing body of one figure and $1.20 for the other one she broke. After saying goodbye, I left, texted her that we're over, and asked her not to contact me again. She apologized, but I was too heartbroken and upset to consider taking her back. I thanked her mom, and that's the last time I spoke to either of them. She acted like a child, breaking my belongings, and making me involve her mom in fixing it. This whole situation was just a big childish mess. I appreciate everyone who left comments, except a few of you. What's wrong with you? Most of the comments were helpful. A big thank you to the person who offered to buy me new stuff because they understood how it felt to have an ex break things. However, what the actual freak is wrong with some of you? I know collecting figures may not be considered normal, but no, I will not throw away my figures. I don't care what you think about my hobby, so you can honestly get the hell out. If my future girlfriend doesn't like it, that's her problem, not mine. And seriously, why the hell did I get called a freaking pedophile? Apparently my figures gave off a pedophile vibe, and that meant I must be a super huge pedophile. Yeah, I don't even know anymore. After dealing with her and realizing how much of a child she was, I guess you could say it's a mess. But no, I'm not a pedophile. This incident was not just about broken figures, but about respect, understanding, and the boundaries of expression in a relationship. It served as a poignant reminder that while some things can be replaced or repaired, the trust and understanding in a relationship are far more delicate, and once damaged, are not as easily mended. In the midst of planning my daughter's upcoming birthday party, a disagreement arises when she wants to exclude 3 classmates from the guest list. As tensions escalate and emotions run high, I am left questioning my decision and the potential consequences it may have. Here's how it all went down. My daughter is almost 12, and her birthday is coming up in a few weeks. She wants to go swimming, so we rented the local community center, which has a pool and a giant activity room. We asked her to make a list of invitees so we can coordinate everything. She asked if she could invite her whole class of about 20 kids. Since the activity center is spacious, we agreed. She went to the kitchen and returned with her classmate directory after about 10 minutes. It's a small binder from her school that lists the names of the students, the names of their parents, and contact information. I noticed that 3 names were crossed out and asked her why. She said those were the ones she didn't want to invite. I asked if they had an argument or if they were mean, but she simply said she thought they were strange and didn't like them. I explained to her that she can't invite the whole class with just 3 exclusions. She insisted it was her birthday and looked at me blankly. I told her excluding only a few could hurt their feelings and suggested having a smaller party with just a handful of her closest friends instead. She insisted on having a big party, and I told her that if she didn't want to invite everyone, then no one would be invited. She ran out of the room crying. Since then, she has been crying and avoiding me, and I'm starting to feel guilty. My wife is frustrated with me and believes that it's our daughter's birthday, so she should only have the people she wants there. I tried to explain that I don't want our daughter to be a reason these 3 kids have a bad time in school. I can't let her exclude other kids like this. Am I the jerk here? My wife thinks we should focus on our daughter having a fun birthday, and that I'm already ruining it by arguing over something that no one will remember in the future. But I strongly disagree. If these kids were bullies, it would be a different story. But they aren't, so to me, it feels cruel. And cruelty can have a lasting impact on people. We spoke again this morning, and I asked her specifically about her feelings towards the 3 individuals. It turns out that there is nothing potentially problematic, as some people had suggested. However, I felt it was important to confirm this just in case. I asked her to imagine herself in their shoes. How would she feel if one of her classmates had a party and invited everyone except her? This approach, which I should have tried in the first place, proved to be effective. She understands now. I explained that this is why she can't invite the entire class except for 3 people, as it would turn into a class affair. I emphasized that she could still have a small party with her close friends, but she insisted on having a big party where everyone is invited. After going through the emotional journey of planning her daughter's birthday party and grappling with the decision to exclude certain classmates, the parent realizes the importance of empathy and inclusivity. By encouraging their daughter to imagine herself in the shoes of those left out, they help her understand the potential impact of excluding others. The parent acknowledges the complexity of the situation and the need to prioritize kindness over personal preferences. Ultimately, the story serves as a reminder of the lasting impact our actions can have on others and the importance of fostering a sense of belonging for everyone. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now or you're definitely the jerk.